What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. We have a cool guest on today, a guy's story that absolutely is incredible, coming from literally, like as he states it, poverty to reaching the highest levels of a very, very large corporation, to then saying, you know what, I'm out. I'm going to go ahead and start my own business. And now he's got a huge book launch going. He's an absolutely fascinating guy. You guys are going to love this. Jeff Hancher is a leadership expert dedicating to help individuals and organizations reach their fullest potential. After starting in an entry-level position to try and support his sick parents, Jeff built a 20-year career in leadership roles with a Fortune 500 company. In 2020, he quit his job to build his own business dedicated to helping equip leaders to reach their full potential. Well, Jeff, brother, it's so good to have you. I mean, we're talking off stage, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be a lot of fun for sure. But I'll start with how you doing this morning, brother. So good to see you. You have a great smile. You have this great demeanor. So I'm so glad you're bringing that energy to the show.
Yeah, man, life is good. I don't know what else to say. You know, when I look back, I think it's this blissful discontent. You know, I'm not where I'd like to be just yet. But man, when I look back, JM, I am so grateful for how far I've come, and zero complaints here from the Hancher camp, and grateful to be with you and your amazing listeners.
Yeah, brother. It's, we were talking about your upcoming book, and I'm going to go to it straight away because you told me the title, and I'm absolutely kind of obsessed with it because one of the words in there is one of my favorites. It's also what a lot of people are like, ooh, I don't know if I want that. Congratulations on the book. I will let you, if you wouldn't mind, just introduce what you're working on. Tell me about it, and then we'll talk about your backstory. But sure. I just love the name of this book, and I think it's going to serve a lot of people. For those that are willing to really read it and say, gosh, you know what, this is pretty cool. So without further ado, what's the name of the book, man? When's it coming out?
The name of the book is Firm Feedback in a Fragile World. I certainly can't take credit for the book title. That was the amazing Mark Cole from Maxwell Leadership. But I can take credit for the content. You know, this is a book that's been on my heart for the better part of 5 years. And how the content of the book came about, it was during the initial shutdown, if you will, of the pandemic. I had just left my corporate job. I'm branching out to do what I feel like I've been put on earth to do, which is develop leaders and start my own company doing that. And here comes the pandemic. There's a big shutdown, and I just go straight into how can I serve leaders? How can I help people? And I pulled, you know, in my role in the corporate world, I had a part in succession planning. And we would figure out why leaders were promotable, you know, what made a great leader. And I didn't look at what made a great leader. I went to solve a problem. So I pulled all these notes and all these files, and I boiled it down to two things that hold leaders back from making their biggest impact. Number one, a lack of emotional intelligence. And I looked at the topic, but I felt like, you know what, that's been played out pretty well. We got a lot of content there. And then the number two reason was the inability to have challenging discussions or to be a challenging leader. And so I started looking into what are all the reasons that we are not good at this. And I started to build a workshop to solve the problem. And I launched my first workshop, performance management is what we call it, the performance management workshop, and it sold out. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I hosted another one, and it sold out. And every workshop that we've opened up to the public since the first one has sold out. And when I was talking to my buddy and mentor, Tim Elmore, he asked me, have I written a book? And I said, it's on my list. And he said, you got to get started right away. What are you writing the book on? I said, I think I'm going to write a book about my story, my life. He said, absolutely not. Nobody cares. He said, what problem do you solve the most? And I told him about this workshop, and he said, Jeff, that's the book. So there's a why behind it because it solves a problem. The intimate side of why I wrote the book is because I'm a product of the title. I would love to tell you that, you know, I got the 10 promotions and build a great book and a successful company because I'm great. It couldn't be further from the truth. I had leaders that popped into my life that believed in me more than I believed in me, and they earned the right to have tough conversations. When I look at my Mount Rushmore of leaders that have impacted my life, they were all tough on me. But I can also say they all cared deeply. And I'll bet every listener can say the same thing. If you look at your Mount Rushmore, were they tough on you? Yes. Did they care? They did. So we know it's possible. The heart of the book is to give every leader, regardless of tenure, regardless of personality, the framework to earn the right to give the tough feedback that's not only good for business, it can literally change somebody's life like it did mine.
It is so fascinating because I watch all the time. People want to be liked as a leader. And I'm like, I get it. Of course you do. I do too, by the way. You don't want to be disliked.
Sure.
However, what you just said, my coach, one of my coaches in basketball, he told me early on, a coach that I absolutely in the moment despised. And by the way, he also is the one that got me to the next level. He said, if I stop yelling at you, that's when you should be worried. Now, I'm not suggesting guys to go out there and yell at people. That is not what I'm saying. So we're clear. But he was willing to say the thing that might hurt my feelings. He was willing to say the thing that I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. You know what I wanted to hear? You're awesome, JM. That's amazing. Keep driving to the hole with your left hand, even though you're right-handed. He used to, Ryerson, use your right? And not to make it, because it's far bigger than this. This conversation, it's our duty as a leader to have these crucial conversations, to give that feedback. And yet it is interesting, Jeff, how we watch people struggle with this. And I'm like, so my question is, would you rather lie to that person? No, that's not a good thing. So you don't want to lie to them. Maybe you just speak your truth in a way that's not harmful or hurtful. And I think that so goes hand in hand, those two, emotional intelligence, have a little bit of that, and have the conversation. What does that look like, brother? When you see people struggle with this, because literally the call before you and I got on this podcast was this exact thing. What do you see people get so hung up with? Is it they're in their head, they don't want to hurt feelings? What is that?
Yeah, I talk about that in the book because we call that feedback avoidance, right? And there's very real reasons for it. One of them is things are fragile, hence the fragile world. Things are fragile, and it's a really hard time right now to be a great leader. I mean, you have our post-pandemic dynamics. Are we coming back to the office? Aren't we? Well, if you make me come back to the office, I quit. You have, the embers still of the Great Resignation. Every hiring manager that's listening right now, by show of hands, you have an open requisition that you need to fill. Every hand is going up. How many have tightness of the chest when your peak performer says, "Hey, boss, you have a minute? I'd like to talk to you." And we're like, oh my gosh, are they quitting? And so we don't want to rock the boat. And then you pepper in this quiet quitting, which is costing the global economy upwards of $9 trillion a year. Wow. Things are fragile. But when you get to the root of this, I talk about the acronym FEAR in the book. Fear is a real thing. If I have this tough conversation, what might happen? Well, the F is fallout. If I have this tough conversation, there might be some fallout. I might ruin my reputation. I might not be liked. I might not be looked at as a nice boss, a cool boss. There might be fallout. Or the E of fear, emotion. What if I have this conversation and they cry? Because you already know that person on your team, that if you're a little too hard, you already know they're going to cry. By the way, if you're in leadership and haven't made anybody cry yet, you're probably not doing it well, right? People are going to cry. I did a whole podcast episode on what to do when they cry. It's a real thing. But what if they get mad? I remember vividly the moment, and look, I probably could have done it a lot better, sitting across the desk with HR right by my side, getting ready to have a tough conversation with an employee. And I start going down this road of tough conversation, and I see fists start to clinch. And I'm like, are we about to do the tango here? Like, look, there could be some emotion, but then there's the A, which is amateur. Man, I don't have a lot of leadership skill. I don't have a lot of leadership training. I don't have a lot of leadership experience. So I feel unequipped. I'm battling a little bit of an imposter syndrome here. So you know what? I don't want to mess it up with having this hard conversation. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to hope it doesn't happen again. But then you have the R, which is retaliation. And this is a big one, especially in the corporate space. What if I have this conversation with this person and they report me to my boss, or they report me to HR, and they twist this story up a little bit? Is that really worth my career and my brand and what I'm trying to do in this company? So there's this fear that takes place where we just say, you know what, let's maybe just let this one ride. What's the antidote to it, JM? The antidote is a quick mindset shift. Because what we're thinking most times is, what if I do? I just want you to shift it a little bit as a leader that cares and say these words. What if I don't? What if I don't have this conversation? I grew up with sick parents. I grew up a mom that had lupus, a dad that battled chronic osteoarthritis. When I transitioned from the military, I was going to get this college degree on the GI Bill. Never had been done in my family lineage. I'm about to start. A couple weeks before starting, my dad calls and says they're sending mom home in hospice. I put college on the back burner. He's getting a leg amputated. During that season of getting all that, trying to stabilize, I just needed a seasonal job. And so I didn't have a lot of skill. So I did a blue collar work and became a truck driver at Cintas Uniform Company. And during that time, I became a pretty good driver. I was winning some awards. Life was good. I had a 401k. I had medical benefits. And I saw these people would walk around the office. They were dressed real fancy. They wore fancy suits and shiny shoes, and they drove these fancy cars. You probably heard of them, JM, Honda Accords. I mean, these guys were legit. And I wanted to do that. And I got my crack in sales. And I come to find I wasn't really good at it. But I had a boss that believed in me, a sales leader that believed in me. This guy would stay after work and role play with me, teach me interest creating statements, teach me how to overcome objections. He went beyond that because he knew a little bit about my background. And I remember one day he brought a tie in from his tie rack and took me into the men's room and taught me how to tie a Windsor knot. He took me to Joseph A. Bank and taught me that how your belt and your shoes were supposed to match and the difference between a sport coat and a suit. This is a guy that went above and beyond. He would ride in the car with me, observe me doing calls. He would do calls, let me observe him. This is a guy that was making deposits. One morning, I was getting ready to go into the field and make some sales calls, and I got a call from my dad after mom had recovered. This lady was in and out of hospice more. She might hold the record, right? I get a call. We think, you know what? She's out of the woods. She's back home. She's on the mend. And I get the call from my dad, and he says, you got to get to the hospital. Now, I'd gotten that call many times. But me and my brother, like we always did, we went to the hospital, stopped everything. And that day it was different, JM. That day would be the last day that I would hold my mom. I kissed her goodbye. And walking out of that hospital, I was a broken man. We had just been looking at homes to get my parents out of this one-bedroom apartment. My why at that point was make enough money to help them with prescription copays. I was broken. I didn't care about the Honda Accord anymore because I had bought one, by the way. I didn't care about the commissions. I didn't care about the potential to make a president's club and take my talents to Colorado Springs to the Broadmoor. I lost all motivation. My attitude was poor. This went on for days. And this sales manager pulled me into his office. And he said, first, let me tell you how heartbroken I am for you and your family. But what he said next changed my life. He said, enough's enough.
Mm.
I'm going to give you 24 hours to think about the man that you want to be. You've told me how important success is to you, and you've told me why. You have an 18-month-old son. You want to have more kids. You have an amazing wife, and you still have a dad and brother that need you. And I'm not gonna let you waste that. But if you keep acting the way you're acting, you can't be on my team. Now, the old rebellious teenager, Jeff, in the anger and rage that I was in, had he not made the deposits he made, I would have said, who are you to tell me what to do? And I would have walked out of that office and never looked back. But check out what happened since that day. I got promoted 9 more times.
Wow.
I won a lot of awards. I built a life for my family I didn't think was possible. I now travel all over the country doing my own consulting and my own business. I'm launching this amazing book with Maxwell Publishing and Simon Schuster. Why do I say all that? To tell you I'm amazing? No. I'm telling you, there was a moment in my life that it could have went a completely different way. But I had a boss that earned the right to have a hard conversation that literally changed my life. And I write about that story in the book, and many stories like that. And I know that's a little bit of a long answer, but I hope somebody is listening that is fearing feedback or they're not confident in it. You have a young Jeff Hancher or a Jeff Hancher on your team that is begging you to show up and lead. They might not like the firm feedback, but they need it, whether they're telling you that or not. And I want to equip leaders to have that same kind of impact.
Yeah, this sales manager sounds incredible. So shout out to him.
Sean, yeah.
Sean, incredible in the fact that you weren't just a number, right? He poured into you to say, look, I do give a genuine care about you. And he wasn't not being empathetic. Actually, he was being extremely empathetic, saying, look, you have an 18-month-old son. Time to get your stuff together, man. Like you look, condolences for your loss, but it's time to move. Don't tarnish what you were trying to do because you lost a loved one. And as painful as that is, and you know what's so interesting to me, Jeff, is going through everything that you did. So having your mom in and out of hospice, your dad, you said, had an amputated leg and sick. That's what's so fascinating to me is everybody goes through their painful story, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone has a story that is painful.
Yeah.
Why is it hard to have a conversation?
Right.
It was much harder to lose your mom. Losing my dad, that was much harder than to have a genuine conversation with a human being that you care about to say, you're not showing up as good as I need you to, or as good as you need you to.
Right on.
It's just, it actually kind of, it shocks me a little bit that we have so much fear, which again, you said fallout, emotion, amateur, and retaliation. So I had not heard that one before. Mine was always false evidence appearing real, but I like this. Like, okay, what's the fallout going to be? Now I'm getting emotional. I'm an amateur. I don't know how to do this. And there's certainly going to be retaliation. What's interesting about that is all of that stuff is looking in the future. And we are terrible at predicting the future. Horrible. You know how many times I have fired people and they have literally said, thank you. And that's what I want people to also hear is like, look, what you think is going to happen, you are a terrible judge of what somebody else is thinking. We are terrible mind readers. And you know what? Your guy, Sean might have said, I might lose Jeff, but I'm going to anyway if he doesn't get his stuff together.
That's right.
So I don't know. Thoughts on that, brother? It does when you think about these major things in life versus a conversation. Really? If you weigh them like that, go have the conversation. Who cares?
Yeah, I think the mindset has to be, I can't control how people respond. I can control how I deliver. That's the purpose of the book is I want to equip you to be at your best to deliver. But here's the thing about leadership. You could be delivering flawless leadership, which none of us will, but let's assume that you could deliver flawless leadership. How people respond, it's none of your business. If we genuinely love people, we will give them the hard feedback. Now, look, there's probably people listening to JM that's like, this episode's not for me. I got this thing on lockdown. I call it as I see it. I'm direct. Matter of fact, they introduce themselves that way. Hi, my name's Jeff. I just want to let you know right out of the gate, I'm very candid and I call things as I see them. Anytime someone does that, you're like, oh, this is going to be a blast. That's what we call the aggressive leader, right? The aggressive leader, I mean, they're just in there running ruckshot. They're not earning the right to say anything. What they're doing is they're getting compliance. They're not getting engagement. But then you have the passive leader who loves a good sheet cake on Friday and loves ice cream socials and is writing handwritten birthday cards and mailing them out for everybody's birthday, celebrating everything. You're liked. You are liked. You're not respected. Because why? Because you don't have any boundaries. The key is earning the right. What Sean did in that moment was he understood why success was important to me, and he tied that back into the conversation. And here's a quick role play that everybody will remember for the rest of their lives, because we've all been there. JM, me, I feel like you're a good sport and you can play role play with me.
Yes, sir.
JM and I, we're going to a big business conference, and we're going to have a booth set up, and we're going to be showcasing our goods to try to, get our services into other companies to equip their leaders. And JM and I, we're strategizing, and it's going to be this big event in Nashville. And I say, JM, look, we're going to be buttoned up. We got all the marketing. We're going to look good. We're going to have our new sport coats on. Hey, let me ask you, if I saw anything that was holding you back from presenting your best first impression, like let's just say that your breath smelled or you drank too much coffee, and we're walking into this event, would you want me to tell you?
Yes, 100%. Don't let me go in stinky, Jeff.
Okay.
Don't let me be stinky now.
Okay. Why is that important to you, JM?
I want to show up as the best first impression I have, and I don't know if I have that coffee breath. Unfortunately, I just can't smell that good. So if you're hearing it, help me out.
Hey, man, we've all been there. And listen, you know what I know about you, JM, is that you want to show up as your best, and not just because you're arrogant, because you genuinely want to serve people. And you have my commitment. If I see, smell anything, I'm going to let you know. Sound good? Great. Him and I, 2 weeks from now, we're walking in and I say, hey, JM, remember a couple of weeks ago we had that conversation about showing up well? Hey, man, I can smell some odor coming from your breath. And I pull into my pocket and I pull out a mint and I hand it to you. You take the mint and you say,
thanks, brother. I appreciate you letting me know. I had no idea.
No problem, man. I'm here for you, man. I want you to do the same thing for me too, okay? That's scenario one. Here's scenario two. I've never met JM in my life. Never spoke to him. He's behind me in the convenience store. I smell breath that's pretty bad. And I turn around and I look at JM in the face and I say, sir, your breath really stinks. Now you're offended. Who are you to tell me that my breath stinks? Here's the crazy thing. The data in both scenarios is exactly the same. In one situation, I earned the right to have a tough conversation. I mean, you telling somebody their breath stinks, that's not fun. But in one situation, I'm being thanked for it. In the other situation, I might get punched. Now, look, in that situation of the convenience store, we have leaders that will say this, JM, I'm just calling it as I see it. I just say it how it is. Do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? We have to start, if we want to be great at giving feedback, by setting clear and reasonable expectations, pillar one, giving feedback on a frequent basis, pillar two, that earns us the right to pillar three, which is accountability. If you have high accountability, monster leader, compliance-driven leader, you have high accountability and low expectations and feedback, you're a monster. Passive leader, you're great at the expectations. Let me tell you all the rules, and I'll give you all the feedback because I want to see you win. But no accountability, ineffective. Right in the middle is this sweet spot of being friendly, but not friends, and being a leader, not their buddy. They need a leader. Parents know this. I'm not here to be your pal, son. I'm here to be your father. That means we're going to have some tough conversations along the way, but you will never, ever question whether I love you. You're always going to know. When we can do this as leaders, not only will you drive a balance sheet and create a competitive advantage, but you will literally be building a leadership legacy that could potentially impact generations.
Yeah, and you know what's amazing is the framework. Even if we go back to the convenience store, if Jeff were to turn around and say, "Hey, do I have permission to just are you open to feedback?" It may not go well still, but getting permission,
Something.
that was one of the most like for me. It's always getting permission, even with my kids, even still today, even as a parent. Hey, because my son is a competitive tennis player, I always ask, Bud, do I have permission to give you feedback right now? Are you open to feedback? Maybe he is, maybe he's not. But if I don't ask that question and I just outright, hey, you got the bad breath or you didn't play well, it's going to go poorly.
So
if
true.
you get permission, and then I love the other word, Jeff, that you said, you have my commitment. I'm not interested in telling you. I'm committed to telling you. This isn't coming from a place of ego. It's coming from love. And I love the way you frame that to say, look, you have to have these things. You have to have permission. You have to get the commitment. One of the things that I also heard in your journey, without knowing it well, you recognize opportunities. I'm guessing. Now, maybe you were that superstar that 9 times people just reached out and said, Jeff is that great. But I'm guessing there was an opportunity and you seized it. Very similar to you and I were talking about Tim Elmore off camera, and you saw an opportunity and you took the shot. There's a lot of people that never take that shot, man. They're like, oh, I really look up to that guy. I've read his books, but I can't reach out. And so then they play small. Tell me about opportunities and what that's looked like in your career, because that's a heck of a lot of promotions. And I know the book alone, you took a great shot to reach out to somebody that has significantly altered the course of your professional life in a great way. But it started with you recognizing the opportunity.
Yeah, man, that is a tremendous question. And I think this is like this success warfare, if you will, because it's hard to like explain it. But you see these people that are always making it happen. There comes a point in your journey that, especially in the corporate world, that results alone aren't enough, because you get to a place that everybody has the results. There's 3 pillars that I like to talk about, which is methods, results, and culture. Like, this is the trifecta in the corporate world, I believe, to advance. But then there's this wild card that isn't talked about enough, and it's network. Network matters. Being obscure is not your friend. Now, look, I'm gonna start with the end, and I'm gonna work backwards. And I'm gonna say this, hopefully to encourage somebody. Hopefully you hear my heart. Endorsements for the book launch: Michael Hyatt, Don Yeager, Ken Blanchard, Mark Cole, Tim Elmore. How in the world this snotty-nosed kid from Podunk, Pennsylvania, who grew up in poverty, how does that happen? I'm still amazed myself, but I'll give you one example. I seized a moment with Tim Elmore. He's launching a book, tough guy to reach. I sent him a LinkedIn video message. Listener, how many LinkedIn video messages have you received in the last 12 months? I know you've received DMs and texts and, in mails and all that stuff, but how many videos that were heartfelt that said something like, Tim, it's Jeff Hancher. We've never met, but your book helped me be a better father, helped me raise an amazing son. And you have a new book coming out, a new kind of diversity that my community needs to hear more about. I'm a leadership coach with over 20 years of experience. I lead a podcast of entrepreneurs and senior leaders, and they need your voice. Would you be willing? heartfelt, unique. He responds back in a video and says, Jeff, couple things. One, I'd be happy to be on your show. I've never received a LinkedIn video in my life, and this is the first one I've ever sent. I would love to meet you. We get on the show. I prepared. I'm ready to go. At the end of the show, the recording stops, and I said, Tim, do you have time for 2 questions? Always be ready. And I asked him 2 questions that ended up in a 35-minute conversation, with the conversation ending like this. Jeff, if you're ever in the greater Atlanta area, we should grab coffee or lunch. And I'm like, is this happening? And I said, as a matter of fact, Tim, I'm going to be there soon. And he said, well, here, I'm going to give you my cell phone number. Tim Elmore gave me his cell phone. And he connected me with his admin. Now, here's what I didn't tell Tim. I didn't tell Tim that I was going to be in Atlanta soon to have lunch with him. I literally flew down, Ubered to the restaurant, had a 90-minute lunch, Ubered back, and came home. That's an investment. But what happened in those 90 minutes changed my life. It opened doors to other connections. It opened doors to Maxwell leadership. People that I admire and owe my success to, like Ken Blanchard, like John Maxwell, Mark Cole. These are generals of our industry, of our space, that have impacted my life. We have to be intentional with our success. Don't let imposter syndrome, and I'm pointing at myself, hey, by the way, I'm still uneducated. Don't tell anybody. I never got the college degree. Oh my gosh, who are we talking to here? This guy must not know anything. Don't let that voice in your head hold you back. Take the shot. Push out the LinkedIn video. Be willing to fail. Wisdom comes 2 ways, by failing or getting around people that have, and learning what not to do. What you consume and who you surround yourself with will determine who you're going to be in 5 years. Fight for that. Fight for mentoring. Go chase it down. It's revolutionized my life.
Yeah, and I think the lesson here is, guys, Tim Elmore's not going out there going, I'm going to go find Jeff Hancher.
No.
Right?
No.
That's not, they're not looking for whoever's listening. Guys, they're not saying, let me go seek you out.
Right.
I promise you, that's just not the way it works.
No.
The fact that you just took the opportunity, said, you know what? Do you have time? Again, he got permission. Do you have time for 2 questions? And then immediately he assumes to say, you know what? I'm going to be in Atlanta. It just so happens to be, I'm going to be there next week. No plans to be there. But that's the kind of, and I'm sure Tim appreciates that now. I don't know if you told him at lunch or not, but I'm sure he appreciates it now to know, like, holy cow, this guy is hungry.
Yeah, well, that did seal it, because he did ask at lunch, what brought you to town? Well, by this time, I already have a captured audience, right?
Right.
And I said, you did. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I flew down to have lunch with you. He said, really? I'm like, yeah. You're Tim Elmore. You have been where I want to go. Look, I'm all for, I wrote a book. I'm promoting a book, so I'm about content. Tim has wrote a lot of books. But if you want to be a good golfer, go read Tiger's book. I'm in. Read it. But if you can play a couple rounds with Tiger, you're probably going to end up being a better golfer. This leadership journey, this success journey, what I've learned, JM, it's much better caught than it is taught. Listen to the podcast, right? And look, we're talking to an audience that gets it. Like they're listening to your show. They've attached themselves to an expert, a leader. They know you care. So I get our audience, but go beyond just consuming. We're not here to win success trivia, business trivia, leadership trivia. We're here to make real impact. Get around people that have been where you want to go. Pull out that crusty dollar, from your wallet and invest in yourself. You show me your 12 months worth of bank statements, I'll show you how serious you are about your personal growth. Where your treasure is, your heart will be. That's a fact.
Well, and I think there's a point to be made here. Look, Jeff very easily could have flown down, had a lunch with Tim. Tim says, great to meet you, and nothing happens. And here's the thing, don't stop.
Yes.
Guys, I promise you, this is here's feedback. You're going to get denied. You will absolutely get let down. You will 100% get rejected. One of the biggest people's fears is to be rejected. I had a gal literally this morning opt out of my self community. And she said, the direction that you're going, it's not in alignment with, where I want to go. And, in the first moment, of course, you're like, well, that kind of stinks. But you know what I wrote back? I appreciate it so much. By the way, if you would be willing, I would just love to get your feedback on anything we could have done differently that might have served you in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not expecting her to come back, by the way. It's not her direction. Cool. But I could have said, you know what? Screw you. See you later. You committed and now you're out. And I see people all the time. That's their visceral reaction is like, you punch me in the face, so I'm going to punch you back.
Mm-hmm.
No. Mm-hmm. Ask for feedback. And if anybody is in sales right now, and to me, sales is life, so you're in sales, when you have a no sale, the best thing you can ask is, what could I have done differently or better to serve you?
No doubt about it.
And isn't it funny, Jeff, how often they end up being your client after that?
Absolutely.
If you're willing to have that
the pressure's off then, right? Yeah.
Tell me about this sold out program that you continue to do, because again, feedback, most people start to run from it. And we're talking about firm feedback in a fragile world, but yet you and I know it's gold. If you really want to grow, feedback is gold. What is it with your program that you're doing that people are just clamoring to get through the door, man? What is it that, because most people aren't like, yes, Jeff, I want the feedback. That's not the majority of human beings. So I'm curious what you're doing, because it's amazing. I love it. But what's in the program?
Well, I'll tell you this. The odds of you, if you show up to this workshop, the odds of you laughing until your abs hurt are pretty high. The odds of you crying until you need a Kleenex are pretty high. These are we're looking to transform people. And so we bring it. When I say we, I have an amazing team, but I am the facilitator. I think that's important to note. I don't delegate this out to a coach on my team. This is my baby. And so we take you through these 3 pillars, but we don't just throw up on you for 8 hours. We're breaking you out into breakouts, into partnering with others. We're role playing. I'm giving you practical strategy. We got the workbook that goes with it. We're sending you home with that workbook. And we are role playing the entire day, these concepts that we're talking about. Because I don't want people to, one, be there because their boss sent them and they're a prisoner of war. Or 2, oh, wow, we get to go to Pittsburgh and check out PNC Park and they see it as a field trip. No, we're looking to change lives. And so high emotion, but very simple, not easy, practical ways. We give you tools. We're giving you PowerPoints so that you can kind of go back, fall on the sword and reset culture. We're giving you templates to help you drive SMART goals within your company. We're giving you accountability structure templates that are all going to be emailed to you the morning after the workshop. And so it's more of an experience than I'm going to go learn something about leadership. I would say it's transformative. Now, look, go to the website and hear what other people are saying. They pay. My company pays me to say it's great, right? But go experience it. Now, we have one. We just literally opened one up for August. I don't know when this is going to air, but it's June 5th, 2025, as of the recording of this. August of 2025. We literally opened it up 2 days ago. We only take 30. I think we got 8 seats sold and we haven't marketed it yet. This is actually the first time I've told the world it's open. So who knows? Maybe a listener will meet me in Pittsburgh.
No,
come
brother,
see Paul Steen's pitch.
Look, PNC Park is pretty amazing. The gentrification of Pittsburgh, if you haven't been over the last, I would say, I don't know, 10, 15 years, incredible. It doesn't even look like the same city. And
no.
Not that the previous Pittsburgh was cool. It's just so different.
So different. Yeah.
What I'm curious because you get these promotions, you go from literally driving the truck to wearing the suits. And I mean, that's probably a pretty cush job with a pretty darn impressive company. And you say, you know what? I'm just not quite fulfilled. Or
Hmm.
I see my passion or purpose going somewhere else. What was the catalyst other than I know you said, somebody that you look up to, whether it's a mentor or your pastor
Hmm.
that kind of put this idea in your brain. But man, you're not this isn't the easy choice.
Hmm.
You've made the hard move, man. You've cruised up. And I know those executive cush jobs. And I
Hmm.
don't mean that you weren't still working hard, but look, you had it pretty made. What made you say, you know what? I have to do this?
Hmm.
Because it not necessarily the easy road that you chose. Clearly it's working out, but I'm just curious, what made you make that decision?
Well, let me start by saying it was the hardest decision I ever made in my life. I'm not going to get on here and do the sexy, cool, trendy, just jump off the cliff, man, go for it. Like that wasn't the message. If anything, it was the complete opposite. I mean, let me preface by saying I loved the company I worked for. Loved. In my opinion, Cintas is one of the best, if not the best company on planet Earth. I'm biased, of course, but it's a fantastic company. I mean, they took me from fill-in truck driver to senior leader. That wasn't on my merit. It was because they had great culture, great training, great leadership. There was upward mobility. There was earning potential. I fully planned to retire from that company. And I had upside. Like I was promotable. And by the way, there's this thing in corporate they call a golden parachute, which means if you leave, it burns. I
Hmm.
had unvested stock to the tune of an amount that if I told you it, we would all throw up. And here I am battling this. Do I stay or do I go? And I did the funeral test. I did are you going to regret this when you're 80? What do you want to be known for? I got this podcast. I'm winning awards from Apple. People are messaging me. Do you do this? Do you do that? I'm starting a side hustle. I would do things. I would get fulfilled. I'm on a plane on a runway in Atlanta, coming back from a business trip. And I'm dwelling on this. Am I staying? Am I quitting? I just got to get to a decision. And I'm thinking, I grew up in poverty, so I carry a poverty mindset. What if we end up poor again? What if I end up in the welfare line? Silly thinking. Imposter syndrome. Am I even equipped to start a company? Who wants to listen to me? Why would I throw all this away? This stress built up in my body on this airplane to the point I was literally sweating through my suit. I start feeling nauseous. Something bad is about to happen. I'm either going to throw up or something. I get up before we even get to 10,000 feet. I get up, take my seatbelt off. I start walking to the bathroom, and the flight attendants are, "Sir, get back to your seat. We're not even at cruise." Next thing I know, I'm laying in the aisle, ice packs all over my chest.
Wow.
And I'm looking around and I'm like, what happened? And they're like, you passed out and had a seizure. We're landing the plane. I'm like, slow down. I feel so much better. Seriously. Please keep the plane going. They sat somebody with me, observed me the whole time. I land in Pittsburgh. I go to the doctor. They're like, good news, bad news. Good news is there's no damage. Have you been stressed? Yeah. They said your vagus nerve got over agitated. If it were to continue, or if it would have been even a little bit worse, you might have had a stroke.
Hmm.
This is the level of stress that I was under making this decision. So if you're out there and this is resonating, I feel you. But the last thing the doctor said was, whatever you need to do to put this stress behind you, you need to do that. So now I have an impending moment. That Friday, I called my boss and turned in my resignation. It was surreal. He's like thinking he's being punked. I was on posters in the company of what's possible. Look, you can start as a truck driver and end up here. This is the company you want to be in. Look at Jeff Hancher. I would run around the country giving, I would go to universities and recruit and tell my story and love the company. And here's this. And then I took the big leap. And by the way, 2 months after I made the leap, the world shut down. You want to talk about challenges, but here's what I'm going to tell somebody needs to hear this. We get one crack at this thing. And I'm not telling you to be a renegade. I'm not telling you to be rebellious. Look, do your homework, earn the right, get great mentoring around you, get good support, be an expert at what you do. But don't live in regret. Don't live in regret. I can't imagine now if I wouldn't have. Who knows? It was
powerful,
tough,
man.
It was
powerful.
tough.
I just imagine you were married at the time, I'm guessing, when this happened.
Yeah,
I imagine
been with her the whole way.
You get off the plane and gosh, there's so much and we don't have time to dive into, but I just imagine you getting off the plane, telling the story, you finally making this decision, which takes the stress off. And then the world shuts down. And I'm like, your wife had to be going, really, Jeff? Like, really, dude? This is the decision you made?
You know what? Contrary, shout out to Janelle Hancher. She is the woman of faith. Let's do this. And it has been that way the whole run. When I told her what happened on the plane, I started by saying, hey, I want to start by telling you I'm okay. But this is what happened. She was pushing me so hard. You got to quit. This is what you're called to do. This is what you're passionate about. And I'm like, yeah, but what if we lose it all? She said, when I met you, we didn't have anything. You were a receptionist answering phones at a refrigeration company. You think I married you for the money? I did not. This is what you're supposed to do. I know it. We'll be fine. It was the whole way. I mean, cheerleader the whole way. I know not everybody has that, but I'm the guy that's on the other side of like, let me give you a million reasons why I shouldn't do this. And she was like, do it, go. And so you need some of that in your corner, right? And she's not, ruthless and irresponsible, but man, I think we all need a cheerleader. And if you don't have one, go get one. And I'm not talking about mom who's like, oh, honey, you're the best. You're great. You don't need mom. Mom has her place. I'm talking about that friend, that mentor that's like, get your head out of your butt, man. Like, you're better than this. Look how you're talking. Look how you're talking about yourself. No, like, you got to go get this done, right? It's so important in the journey.
No, it's true. And shout out to every spouse on, husband, wife. We have those cheerleaders, those that are very fortunate. My wife, incredible. You know what? I don't talk about it enough on the show. Shout out to them all. I love that story. Jeff, we have run out of time.
Yeah, man.
If people want to reach you, man, and they're like, I want to go check out Firm Feedback, like in a fragile world, because it's such a good title. Kudos to Mark. Like, great job, man.
Yeah.
But if they want to find you, the book will be out. Congrats. Where do they find you?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can buy the book anywhere books are sold, but don't miss out on the bonuses. Go to firmfeedbackbook.com. Firmfeedbackbook.com. If you buy it there, we're giving you hundreds of dollars worth of free content that will help you digest what's being written in the book. So go to firmfeedbackbook.com. For all the other stuff, jeffhancher.com, pretty original, like Jolly Rancher, but with an H. You can find the podcast, my trainings, sign up. Hopefully I see somebody in August in Pittsburgh. Would love to meet you in person for that workshop, but a lot of free content as well. We got the podcast, of course, and the YouTube channels and Instagram and all the stuff. So would love to connect with your audience. And JM, thanks for the work that you do, making deposits in the lives of other people. And I'm so glad that our paths have crossed as well.
No, I feel the same, brother. Thanks for the way you show up. I just appreciate you, man, and keep doing all the amazing things you're doing.
Absolutely.
So I learned a new acronym with fear: fallout, emotion, amateur, and retaliation. And when he was talking about that in regards to these crucial conversations, it totally makes sense. People are so worried about what is the fallout. It's going to become emotional. I'm an amateur at this. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And what's the retaliation going to be? The truth of the matter is most of these crucial conversations don't end that way. And his framework, really getting permission before he ever gives that feedback, and then truly being committed. I think it's something that anybody can use. And it was such fascinating timing, because I literally was coming off a call with somebody where we were having this exact same conversation, where there was all this resentment being built up in this person's head because of a conversation. I said, look, brother, all you need to do is speak your truth. That doesn't mean pointing fingers. It just means saying, this is how I feel when you do this. And I think this conversation was so impressive, so important, and it's amazing what he's doing. So, guys, I hope you get a chance to go check out Jeff's new book, Firm Feedback in a Fragile World. And please share this with someone that you know, love, and care about. And make sure to subscribe to both the YouTube channel, to the podcast. And until next time, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate y'all. We'll talk soon.